and Bob Munoz here to serve as our moderator. Bob is the president of the S&P. But before I hand it over to Bob, I'd like to ask Goldstein to say hi. And for the few minutes, I will be serving as your timekeeper. So don't walk through my stop sign, which looks like this. Oh, come up and stop on. You don't want my size 14s on your toes.
Well, I'm Pastor John Goldstein, pastor of Grace Church, and I just want to welcome everybody. We're so excited to be able to make our space available to community events like this. It's so important to know who your candidate is. I always say you can vote by name, but it's really nice to know who your candidate is, and see how they fit and how they talk with you, and then they can help you move your own ideas, not just reflect your ideas. So this forums like this are always such a wonderful way to do that. And always happy to know that the church in some way is trying to make it possible for us to talk to each other, share our different perspectives on life and experiences, so we can build a better community.
Sylvia Arenas.
San Jose council member and former Evergreen School Board trustee.
I'm John.
Johnny Campbell is the former San Jose City Council member.
Claudia Rossi.
He was the former Morton School Board trustee and the Clara County Board of Education. Used to be.
Her term would be a dictatorship.
Yes.
Denelle.
Non-profit caseworker, former San Jose council candidate and local staff. So with that, we're going to go straight to the questions, which were not provided to the candidates before. The first four questions.
Also take that idea of safety first into I built up neighborhood associations places in the street. As well as business watches and neighborhood watches. And the people who are around here. And set the law and restore salaries and benefits for police officers, as well as establish a burglary order, establish a new sexual violence case and we just recently approved authorizing police department and walking the officers. This is going to really build on community policing. Which is basically building that relationship with people who live in neighborhoods. That's what's important when folks have those relationships established. So I think it's part of just building a network in your neighborhood, building that network with your public safety officers, and making sure that you know the best.
Okay, so I have worked very hard as a city council member to make sure we have enough funding for our police department. I was a councilman at City Center, but we have to go beyond some of these ideas. There have been so many laws that have passed statewide, like Prop 47, which is now everybody is in agreement that it was a bad idea and the crime is going on. I think we need to repeal that law, at least part or in whole. That happens in the state legislature areas. But in the meantime, we can do many things at the county level to help make us more secure. Right now, there's a lot of early release of people who are incarcerated. Before and when they get out of the incarceration system, they're offered these services on a voluntary basis: job training, job placement, housing and whatnot, but they have to voluntarily go in. I think it's important for us to make these programs non-voluntary and part of leaving the jail system early. They need to be incentivized to leave the jail system, prepared to rejoin society. I think that way we can reduce crime because these people will have opportunities and things to do when they get out of jail, which they don't have now. There are also huge problems at the sheriff's department that I'm hoping to work with the new sheriff. They actually defunded the open positions in 2021, 200 of them. We need to rebuild that force. I think we built the force in the city of San Jose. Now I'm hoping to work with the new sheriff.
Thank you for the question. A few years ago, the California State Assembly honored me with his Labor Award, and I was nominated to receive that award from King of the following year, I was honored with the Champion Award, recognizing my work in my age, dialogue with our local law enforcement. And that was a feat that I worked on very carefully because, as you know, South County encompasses Gilroy, San Martin, and Morgan Hill, which is home to many of our undocumented brothers and sisters. So by creating a dialogue between the immigrant communities and our police department, we were able to look at policies that created distrust between the community and law enforcement. I also want to share with you that I have met with our probation officers to get their ideas about how we can best support re-entry of people who are released into the community. A lot of it has to do with providing wraparound services for those inmates, so they can have access to apprenticeship programs, drug counseling, and mental health. So I look forward to continued dialogue with the community. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm honored to be here with all of you and those of you on Zoom. My name is Denelle Fedor. My background is very pro public safety. I was on the San Jose Police Foundation board. Can you hear me okay? Okay. I was on the San Jose Police Foundation board for 4 years, supporting public safety. I was the former president of the Santa Teresa Foothills Neighborhood Association, where we work closely with neighborhood watch programs, specifically within the city of San Jose. Being safe in your home is very, very important. That should not be compromised. I think we all remember a few years ago when a woman named Bambi walked her dog and came back into her house, and someone had come into her house, stabbed her, and killed her while she was at home. And that's just uncalled for. I think that everybody who commits a crime, whether it's sanctuary city or not, should be held accountable and should be punished and kept in jail so that they're not a problem for those of us out. I don't support early release. I think the reentry program and helping people learn within jail is really important, but some people will never be able to be rehabilitated. And I think we need to be really honest about that. I do believe in competitive salaries, specifically with the county. We need to make sure that we're paying our public safety officers, that we're competitive with other cities so we don't lose the good people. I believe in term limits for the sheriff, the county assessor, and the district attorney. And it's really troubling to see how our first female sheriff is leaving after 30 years. I think this would have, the problems that we've had with the jail could have been not happened if we would have had term limits in place.
Thank you. John, more questions from you. What do you think about SB 9 and 10 and the concept of opportunity housing in general.
Perfecto. Ya lo tengo.
Well, let me not mince words. I don't support SB 9. I think 10's okay, but I think SB 9 was, one of those programs that had good intentions, but really, really a bad idea. I think it's, in fact, I was working on a ballot measure to repeal it. I was one of the signers of the forms that were going around, and I think it's been postponed for a year, but I'm going to be working to repeal that. I think local, local governments deserve to have their own rights of zoning and what happens in their city, and I will continue to advocate for local people.
Thank you for the question. I have many colleagues that are first responders that have to travel all the way from farmers, teachers, nurses, nursing assistants, people who provide life-saving services to our community and can't afford to live here. We have to face the reality. We are an aging population. And when we don't have housing that accommodates the caregivers, that enable many elderly people to stay at home and receive care, all of that is affected by availability of affordable housing. Now, we have heard this question in different forums, and while some communities oppose it, others very much embrace it. When it comes to housing policy, I think we need to put all options on the table and really admit that there are communities that resist having those options, and that places a burden on other communities to address it. So I think we need to leave all options on the table. Thank you.
So I'm against SB 9. I don't believe that single-family home zoning should be changed to anything more than single-family. I think it's disruptive to our neighborhoods. I think it's disruptive to our community. I'm very supportive of historic preservation, and SB 9 threatens historic preservation as well. And we've worked really hard to keep historic preservation alive and well by reusing our old buildings. I think that local control, we should always have local control over our land use policies. We know what's best for ourselves locally. I support ADUs. Those are accessory dwelling units, and I think they should be easy for people to get. That allows you to have a second accessory in the back of your home. And that would very much help with keeping families together. I support housing assistance, support building affordable housing. And I think that's what we really need to concentrate on, is building communities and not disrupting them. The majority of words and there's no exceptions, right now to Santa Clara, but the majority will be the Santa Clara. Now, I support SB 9 totally. Housing is a problem for everyone. It's a regional problem, and it has to have regional approaches. And I think this is a state law. We can choose which state law we will follow or not follow. We have to follow it. I actually appreciate the state law because it obligates other areas like Palo Alto, like Los Angeles, like all those hillsides or very richer neighborhoods that don't want to build. All of the affordable housing is happening here in San Jose. You know that we have more people in San Jose in the evening than we do in the daytime because we're a bedroom community. So this balances things out. And let me give you an example of beautiful duplexes. You go on Moss leading up to the park. Those are all duplexes. Nobody would be able to come. There's 100, maybe more than 100. And nobody has, talked about them, complained about them, or mentioned them. I think it matters the standard designs that we are going to hold up in our community so that it integrates well and that we can provide alternatives for families.
The next one. What would you do to resolve our homeless issue? How long would you expect it to remain open?
I'm gonna do what I do in my profession as a registered nurse. I want to be direct. I have attended many meetings and participated in many advocacy and initiatives. Some put it at 20 years, believe it or not, because we are not only dealing with the lack of affordable housing inventory, but we are also dealing with the fact that here in Santa Clara County, each year, over 600 families become homeless. Over 600 families. And you add to that the daycare crisis, which is keeping so many women, mostly being able to go back to work, and they're one paycheck away from being homeless. And so what do? We engage with the federal government because I think at the federal level there needs to be recognition that California has particular challenges. The county is well positioned and it has supported the turnkey project, which has converted hotels to housing. We need to look at the county properties to see how county can contribute to the solution. We need to engage with school districts. So as they have declining enrollment where schools are closed, those can be converted to providing housing options, tiny homes, container housing, all the options need to be on the table. So that's some of the approaches, and to address the mental health issues as well that affect our community, because that is also tied to some of our whole housing crisis and homelessness crisis. Thank you.
So I believe the question was about homelessness. So for me, homelessness is more like a Venn diagram. 50% I think of homelessness is affordability, and the other 50% is the mental health issue. And then there's the Venn diagram that some of it overlaps. So one, I'm the only Republican candidate running of the 5 candidates. And I know it's a nonpartisan race, but being a Republican is important to me, and it's important to me that you know that. I support, as a Republican, Governor Newsom's CARE Court. And the CARE Court, I have information about, talks about looking at mentally ill and helping the mentally ill from a state perspective and giving the counties the resources they need to help mentally ill people with professionals in that field. I think it's a great program. I'm very proud of our governor. I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm very proud of him. And it's going through the legislature right now, and I hope it passes with bipartisan support. That's for mental health. For the other part of homelessness is the affordability issue. I'm really thankful that we did pass Measure A a few years ago and that we could use that money to build affordable housing. I'm a big fan of mixed use. I think affordable housing should be everywhere. And it should be mixed with market rate and commercial and retail. Affordable housing mixed throughout the county, it makes us a stronger county. And so I support those efforts. I also support assisted outpatient treatment. Some of you may have heard of Laura's Law. Supervisor Simidian has been a strong leader on this, and he and I agree that it would be good to have a nonprofit administer that program. So I just want to thank you for the question, and that's my response for the homeless issue. I know it's about homelessness, but what about?
What would you do to resolve our homeless issue, and how long do you expect it to remain?
So
I'm working on my 6th year as a council member, so this has been an issue for the city of San Jose. And when I first started, really, we were focusing on development and not any of the wraparound services that we know are just optimal and necessary to support and housing. And now what we've done is pivoted and made sure that we are focusing on families and children, because we used to not help them, so we used to not serve them. And this kind of prevention is going to pay off in the long term. So one of the things that I think that the county is doing really rather well, is based on a report on the grand jury, is that they've satisfied their permanent housing, so their building is going great, but their rapid rehousing is falling short. So this means the rapid rehousing means folks are still out on the street. That's basically what it comes down to. We don't have anywhere to really transition them. So when we have rapid rehousing solutions, we have places for folks to come to. It's not the focus of the county, and so this is something that I would commit to. I also believe the best strategy is prevention, and the city of San Jose is putting in a number of $1 million to help prevent evictions for a lot of folks who applied for state funding and just didn't get through far enough, and they were on the verge of getting evicted. And so this is a complex issue that sometimes is layered with mental health, and so we have to have a multi-pronged approach and investment.
Thank you for the question. I actually also support any of the prevention items that we did with the city of San Jose, and I also worked very hard to make sure that we have permanent housing available on every one of these projects. I also, most people call me the numbers guy because I look at statistics, and the facts of the matter is, according to the county, there are multiple reasons why people are homeless. 42% of the homeless population are mentally ill, 35% are drug addicted, 27% have left the incarceral system, 19% have come from out of state. And I have put together a plan to address the underlying problems that we face. I support the CARE Act. In fact, I supported lower bar, and I pushed it 6 years ago after a police officer Johnson died. It finally passed at the county level last year. And it's a program that has shown great success, both in San Francisco, San Mateo, and now San Jose. It is a program that's going to be expanded if this CARE from Gavin Newsom passes and is well funded, as was, he said it was going to be funded with $14 billion to produce 55,000 mental health units and 10 million annually in mental health services. I support that, and I will push for funding at the county level when that thing passes. I also want to reunite the families. I mean, the best support system is the family system. So 19% times 9,700, 2,000 people that come from out of state. We should try to unite those families because of the best system that they can have is with their new families. I asked you all, I can't go into the rest of it since you're on 2 minutes. Please read the power.
Last question, that's 2 minutes. What do you believe should happen to redevelopment airport?
So we tell you, so I'm a San Jose native. I'm probably going to take the full 2 minutes on this one. I'm a San Jose native. Both of my grandparents lived right near the Hillview, off of Ocala and off of Waverly, 50 miles east of 41. My parents went to high school, the public schools there, they were high school sweethearts, got married almost fully committed. That's why I was baptized. So the Wheat Hillview Airport is something that I know very well. I'm going to share personal and I'll just share professional. Personally, I think that the Wheat Hillview Airport has just been part of our community. The people who built the airport built it in the middle of nowhere. We were there when there was a golf course where history was, and there were no homes around. And then San Jose's planning, they built a major airport over the downtown, and then built all the housing here in the city. It was really for land. And I recognize that trade has left the station. But personally, I'd like to see Wheat Hillview stay. I'm not getting paid by the PAC. There is a Wheat Hillview Airport PAC. Who's getting money to candidates, but they're not paying me. I'm not accepting money from PACs. But professionally, it's going to be closed. And if I'm elected, I will not be an obstructionist to try to keep it open, because I think we're going down the path to close it, to use it for another use. I will be, if I'm elected, I will be a voice to make sure that some of that land is preserved for emergency services. We've seen flooding, we've seen fires, we've all lived through COVID. And so it's important to have emergency services in the East Side area, even a pad, a helicopter pad for emergency. So if elected, I'll be a voice to preserve some of that land for emergency purposes. So if you haven't read the study that was released recently about the lead poisoning coming from Wheat Hillview leaded gas, I would ask you to please read that before you make a decision on whether that airport should stay closed or open. And really the folks who use it, utilize it, are folks who are not from San Jose. And I'm going to take a stand about that closure. I don't agree to have some people have the luxury of flying while others are going to be detrimentally impacted. Their cognitive ability reduced, the amount of money that they will be able to then generate will be lessened in the millions. The people that are going to be impacted are not just those who are living right next door, but those ones who are in Hidden Glen, and this is the neighborhood on the backside of Safeway. So I know that the county has changed to unleaded fuel, but pilots can still fuel elsewhere and still continue to use leaded fuel and then come into this airport. When the fires were happening, they didn't use fixed wing planes to tackle the fires. They use helicopters. And so I would very much support a helicopter pad as well as maybe other emergency services stations. But really the CAL FIRE didn't use Wheat Hillview Airport. And so right now it's a question of health for those neighbors and those children living next door.
So I think that closing the Wheat Hillview Airport is very short-sighted. I think there's a renaissance in the aerospace industry. And quite frankly, after reading the report, I find it extremely flawed. For example, again, I don't want to bore everybody because I'm a numbers guy and I actually look at the numbers. The blood levels were 0.02% higher around Wheat Hillview Airport. The machines to detect the blood level were accurate up to 0.04%. So statistically, it is not an issue at all because 0.04% makes it could be negative 0.02% if you want to look at it the way statistically you should. So the actual environmental impact, the actual report isn't worth the paper that it's written. And to close down a vital facility for people to learn how to fly for people at San Jose State University who are kids are learning how to fix planes and fix other engines and things like that, to create really well-paying jobs. I think it's really short-sighted. On top of that, some fires are able to be put out with helicopters, but some, what if we have an earthquake? We need to fly in goods, not just in small amounts in a helicopter. We need the extra emergency protection that airport requires. Besides, all that's going to go into its place is high density housing and cause a whole lot of congestion. And I think that again, short-sighted. I think it should be reconsidered, and I will make sure to do my best to keep it open.
Thank you for the question. I am a registered nurse, and one of my many duties was to bring in community and children to get their blood levels tested. And what I can tell you is that the damage that lead causes cognitively, physically to children is irreversible. You can't fix it. You can't fix the damage that it causes children that are exposed to lead levels. And so I want to acknowledge that I think it's a very positive thing whenever community, such as our community, joins to address a public health hazard, whether it be lead or whether it be industries that are being placed in communities of color. And so as the representative for District 1, which also includes the San Martin Airport, I will be very vigilant to make sure that our part of the county, Morgan Hills, San Martin, and Gilroy, are not, as usual, the dumping ground that would take some of that traffic on, because we just don't have the capacity. I do realize that it could be a staging area in case of a natural disaster, but I think overall the discussion about what fuel we use and we expose the community to is an important discussion, and I support that discussion. Thank you.
So we have two more questions. First question. Please share your thoughts on the new jail approved by the Board of Supervisors this past January.
That was a difficult decision to make. We've talked earlier about homelessness and how it intersects with mental health. And we can't have it both ways. These are complex issues. And so we have to make sure that the support services are available for folks with behavioral or mental health issues are there for them, and that they're utilizing, and that we invest in those systems. And so I think it was, the best decision that they could make for the time being, but I think we also need to invest in behavioral health and ramp that up so that we don't see as many homeless people on our streets.
Yeah, I actually wrote an op-ed on this issue. It actually only passed with a 3-2 vote. I could tell you that there's a big, movement to de-incarcerate, and I am not in favor of allowing people who are violent to be on our streets, especially if they're mentally ill and violent. We need to have a place for people who are mentally ill, and a safe and humane place for them. This new jail facility will have 200 mental health evaluation beds in it. It was already funded by the state because our jails are dilapidated. They had such a bad rating that the state actually paid hundreds of millions of dollars to allow the county to upgrade them. And so I'm very much in favor of the new jail.
I agreed with the vote, and I want to share with you why. Those facilities are the home of incarcerated people in our community. Those are the living conditions of somebody's son, somebody's husband, somebody's father. And those facilities are the working conditions of our law enforcement custodial officers. So I wholeheartedly agree we need to invest in mental health facilities. But I also, I was and am in agreement with the vote. One more thing to consider, if we don't have the facilities, people who are incarcerated are sent out of the county, which breaks that familial tie. Families are no longer able to visit their relatives in the jail system, and that is devastating to our incarcerated residents. So I do support it, and I did. Thank you.
So I definitely supported the new jail, and I'm glad it's finally happened. I also believe that we should, right across the street from the jail is the old City Hall in San Jose. I believe it's a historic building and that it should be reused as a mental health facility. We will have 200 mental health beds in the new jail, but I think that building, it's in the vicinity of San Jose Police Department and the jail should be reused. The jail will cost $80 million from the general fund. And I've been called a budget hawk on many occasions because I watch where the money is spent. And if elected, I will make sure that our jail stays on budget, that 80 million doesn't turn into 90 million, and that it also stays on timeline, which is supposed to be completed, I believe, in 2024.
What plans would you have for the county fair?
Well, that's interesting. I think that the county fairgrounds has been in research mode for more than 30 years. I think that the county had been really short-sighted. In fact, our city tried, I feel, much harder during COVID to house people that are unhoused by doing our part to put in mobile homes and temporary homes, shelters, even a Happy Hollow Zoo. We did our best. I think that the county needs to do more to reevaluate what can be done, at least in some of the parking lots, to house some of the people who need temporary shelter immediately. There's nothing stopping us from buying brand new temporary housing units and putting them. And you know, I give credit. The city council works very hard. They put in modular housing in many other places. We need to look at all county property, as was been promised forever and ever, and nothing's been done.
Thank you. There are two things that I would like to see happen with the fairgrounds facilities. It should contribute to a solution for our unhoused residents. But I also would like to see nonprofits be invited to establish their headquarters there. And I'll share with you why. Nonprofits, many of them are doing the best work when it comes to our unhoused communities. So I'd like to see a combination of housing, but I also would like to see nonprofits come in and pay a rent of $1 a year, which is what we did in Morgan Hill, to create more partnerships, because government isn't always a solution. The nonprofit community can definitely contribute to provide services for our unhoused residents at that site. So a combination. Thank you.
So it's interesting we're talking about reusing the county fairgrounds, because I'm old enough to remember when the county fair was packed, and no one would even think that we would be, reusing that parcel for anything else but our fair, which was a wonderful event. A couple of different things. One is versus looking at temporary uses versus permanent uses. The other one is looking at the fairgrounds like a big wildfire. And what they do to combat a wildfire is they break it down into smaller pieces. And so I do think in some cases we can look at the fairground property and look at it smaller and smaller pieces and see if there's uses that we can start using there, like affordable housing, but in uses like that. I also think we need to use the fairgrounds for outside play. There's not enough places for kids to play soccer and organize sports. A lot of neighborhoods are overrun. So my time is up. Um,
Um, so the county fairgrounds is a site that everybody looks at, because it's quiet and open space. I think it could be used for a number of things, but it's not the only site. And I think that we need to look at the whole industry. I would be very cautious about continuing to segregate people who are poor, and that kind of affordable housing all in one place would continue with that level of segregation. I think affordable housing would be among every part of the city of San Diego. They're already living from what's from us. It's like in
So that's one question from the audience. Well, I have more than one, but I'm going to pick one. And I'm just going to 1 minute. UPA has been playing with financial and management problems. How would you bring sanity to the public transit problems in Santa Fe County?
I appreciate the question. I am in agreement with the grand jury recommendation to revisit the makeup of the VTA board. It's in its current form. It's used by some people who hold political office and might want a high-profile opportunity to say they sit on the VTA board. But that lack of expertise from those board members has really been an obstacle to creating real solutions. So I think we need to start by looking at the recommendation of the grand jury as it pertains to the VTA board. That would be a very good start. I come from South County. We definitely do not have the transportation routes that our working families need. So it's a simple answer, let's start with that board. Thank you.
I'm gonna ditto what you said. I think it's always important, as someone who's been called a budget hawk, to always relook at how government agencies spend their money. And having the grand jury report is an objective analysis of a government agency, and it did not come back with glowing colors, and we should not ignore that. I do think that we need to reel VTA in. We need to begin the dismantling and rebuilding of our public transportation system. The report shared, and many reports have been out, that buses are cost less money and they serve more people. And we need to make sure that we have executing good bus service from Gilroy, Morgan Hill to San Jose, and vice versa. I also think we have to concentrate on events and provide transportation to our events. We have 3 major stadiums within the county.
Let me repeat the question. BTA has been plagued with financial and management problems for years. How would you bring sanity to the public transit problems in Santa Fe County?
You said sanity. I'm not sure that any one of us can produce sanity when we're talking about a transit system that we know is problematic. We have the largest transit hub here in District 8 out of the city of San Jose. We expect light rail to come in. I really think that we should have started with the east side and the folks who actually use public transit. I think that as the city grows and as the area grows, we need to make sure that that connected growth makes sense with our transit. and what we're planning to do with our transit. Sometimes those two things are not aligning, and that's what we see. That's when we see this lack of, the trains that are going to South County that they're 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. When you really want to get people out of their cars, you have to meet them where they are.
So most people don't know this, but VTA is a congestion management agency. That means that they're supposed to actually also fund highway and road projects. Not enough of that has been going on. I actually lobbied for Highway 85 expansion. And I'm very much against the funding of, I call them vanity projects, right? We already know light rail doesn't work. They're pulling the plug on light rail everywhere else, and now they're building an extension to Eastridge to the tune of more than $700 million. And by the way, they're going to take away 2 lanes of traffic and cause more congestion for all of you. I think we need to pull the plug on that project and make sure that we can get our roads, at least Capitol Expressway, timed so that the lights will go on if you go a certain speed like we do have in the city of San Jose. I will work to make sure that we spend our money wisely.
So I think that's the last of our questions. Now we have 1 minute for closing statements, and I think we start with Danielle, correct? Danielle? And we'll work away. 1 minute.
Sometimes I can talk longer than 1 minute. I just want to end where I began and thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for those who are tuning in on Zoom. My name is Denelle Fedor. I am the only Republican candidate running for District 1. I bring a balanced approach. I'm considered a budget hawk. I'm a fiscal conservative. I also currently work as a case manager, and I was a former rape crisis counselor. I believe I bring very qualified because of my unique background. I am fiscal conservative, but I also support funding nonprofit programs. I support the county's partnerships with nonprofits, and they're very much needed. I thank you for your consideration in supporting me and voting for me as your next county supervisor.
Good evening. I'm once again Sylvia, and many of you I see very familiar faces because we've been through it together, fighting against Measure B and winning on Measure C, making sure we fill in some of those empty retails. The recent thing is Costco and Kaiser's coming, as well as just coming through the pandemic once again together. I'm a collaborator, and I think outside the box. My profession, I've chosen to have a master's in public administration, and so I'm very keen on policy and making systems work. I've done a lot of joint meetings with the county, and so I've already begun to collaborate with the county to improve our systems in public safety, as well as in child well-being and family-related items. So I look forward to continuing to connect with you.
We're good? Okay. I also want to thank everybody for coming out and taking the time out today to know who to vote for, to know what they stand for, and I appreciate you doing that. I have been a leader for fiscal responsibility, a proven leader for fiscal responsibility at the city of San Jose. I've been a proven leader for accountability, and I've been a proven leader to make sure that we actually get results for the money that we spend for our city, whether it be on pavement maintenance, or many of the other things that I served on VTA and the other boards that I've served on. I don't think that we can continue to do the same thing at the county and expect different results. So I'd ask you to please join me in demanding fiscal responsibility, accountability, and results for the tax dollars that we pay into the system. Join Johnny Khamis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have been endorsed by State Senator Dave Cortese, former County Supervisor Blanca Alvarado, current Supervisor Otto Lee, and Susan Ellenberg, as well as Senator Jim Bell. And these endorsements recognize the fact that I have served as the only elected at the county level in this race. I have been a chronic disease management RN, and when you consider that of the $9 billion budget, county allots almost 60% to healthcare. So I would say to all of you, rather, as much as I respect my fellow candidates, I would ask you to please vote for the nurse. Thank you.
So I just want to thank, now that I'm on, right? Can you hear me? Now you can. Good. I want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight to the District 8 Community Roundtable. It's important that the community hears you. We want to thank all of you for coming live and those of you on Zoom. It's important that you're well informed before you go and vote. So thank you all very much. The mayor's forum is going to be right after. We're going to take a small break. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you.